Do you want to learn the tricks that top leaders use to get the most out of themselves and their teams? Well, Naftali Hoff is here to help. Lead to succeed. Picks the brains of top leaders to learn about their challenges, insights, and best practices. Here's Naftali.
Hello, Lead to Succeed Nation. It's Naftali Hoff, and welcome to Lead to Succeed, episode 140. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Rob Moore. Rob is the founder of the Progressive Group, encompassing progressive property, progressive success, and the Entrepreneur's Business Academy. His training companies are amongst the largest in the UK and globally recognized. With over 1,000 speeches delivered in the last decade, Rob is a sought-after keynote speaker known for his unfiltered Rob's Rants and tactical insights. As a mentor, to numerous millionaires and celebrities, he's helped tens of thousands of entrepreneurs go from zero to millionaire status, which I think, frankly, all of us would appreciate. Rob, so nice to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit more? Obviously, the bio gave us a glimpse, but unpack that for us a little bit more. Your journey, how you got here. I know if I would have read the broader bio, there was the what's the word I'm looking for? There was much more detail there in terms of the challenges that you encountered initially to get to where you are today. So maybe you could unpack that for us.
Sure. So when I was 6 years old, my dad got me working in his pub. So in England, we used to have a lot of pubs, which is where people would go and drink and socialize. It was the only place you ever went. My dad had pubs, and he loved getting me working, and I loved working for him. And I could pull pints and empty the pinball machines and the pool tables. I didn't really want to go to school. I just wanted to work for my dad. And my dad always had a big wedge of cash in his pocket. He was his own boss. Everyone looked up to my dad. He was strong, and Dave Moore was the boss. And I was like, I just want to be like that. And
I love the drama. I love the drama there. Yeah, that's great. And by the way, that alone, so many people, they think about their parents and what they did, and okay, but I wanted to be something different or better or whatever. So just loving the way that you're connecting to that. Go ahead, tell us more.
Yeah, sure. So he would pay me £1 a week, and I would do however many shifts, and I would go down to the local shop where you could buy a picture of a Ferrari Testarossa for £1, or a Porsche 911 for £1, or a Lamborghini Countach for £1. And I would spend my week's wages buying all these cars and putting them up on pictures on my wall in my bedroom because I loved cars. And fast forward to 26 years and 11 months, and my dad had this huge nervous breakdown in his latest pub in front of all of his customers. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone have a proper nervous breakdown, but it's like they're possessed. And I had my dad outside the front of his pub, and it was like he was possessed by a demon. He just couldn't understand where he was. Someone had called the police because they thought he was being aggressive. The police beat him up in front of my family and all of the customers in the pub. They sectioned him. They put him in Ward 5, the mental institution part of our local hospital. They wouldn't let us see him for months. And at that moment, I was 50 grand in personal debt. And this is pounds, not dollars. So it's more, maybe a lot more in dollars. I was broke, unhappy. I was working in my dad's pub, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an entrepreneur like my dad, but I'd gone to school and gone to uni and got good grades, but no one was employing me. And it's probably a bit brutal for me to say I was a complete loser, but my life was going nowhere. I was probably quite close to going personally bankrupt. For about 2 weeks over the Christmas period of 2005, I beat myself up. I hated myself. I blamed myself. I tortured myself. My dad had paid for my school, private, my first car, my first house, all the, important stages of my life. My dad had always backed me financially. And this is what I'd come to. And then someone who I knew came up to me and said, Rob, are you finally going to get into property now? And I said to him, I don't know how, but tell me what to do. And I dismissed property and dismissed yuppie entrepreneurs and arrogant millionaire people. I hated them all because I hated myself. And finally, when things were at their lowest point, I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll go to this property meeting. It's just a little Holiday Inn in Peterborough. No one knows where it is. There was maybe 12, 15 other people there. It was all very informal. And at the end of that networking meeting, I met my business partner, who I've been business partners with for nearly 18 years, which is longer than most marriages. And together, we now own 340 rental units. We've got 1,350 properties in our management firm. We've got the UK's largest property training company, does 20 to 25 million a year in sales. We've done over $250 million in sales. Broke the world record for the longest speech 3 times. I've written 19 books. I've got 14 companies, 7 supercars, and life is very different, and that's the short version.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I'm trying to figure out where to start. You know, I'd love to hear about, just, I guess, towards the end, before you shared all of the success statistics with us. You talked about being at your lowest moment and feeling like you have nothing to lose, and you went to this informal presentation, let's call it, met your partner. One piece that's missing in my mind was the process. So it all sounds fine and good, but obviously, if you knew nothing about property, real estate, property management, all of that, there needed to be, I'm sure, a lot of work involved in the learning, and maybe you could take us more into that piece, because, you know, it's all nice and good for us to motivate our listeners and say, hey, you know, it can be done. But I think a lot of people then get stuck because they don't have the how. And so or at least they don't think they do. And so consequentially, they wind up reverting back to where they were. And in your case, you could have fallen back into pub management or whatever it was that you were doing, but you chose a different path. And then you obviously took significant and consistent steps towards that outcome. So without getting into too much of the, let's call it the technical language of the industry, walk us through the process that you took to learn and how you managed to, I guess, believe in yourself sufficiently to trust that this could be a successful endeavor.
Right, let's try and do the quickest but most detailed reverse engineer of those 17 years. Let's go. Right, step 1, I had to tune into motivation or even desperation. I was unhappy, but probably not in enough discomfort, still lived with my dad, wasn't yet bust. So stage 1 was motivation and pain. Stage 2 was going to places and meeting people where I've got a good chance of meeting the right people. So where do millionaires go? Where do business partners go? Where do real estate investors go? So that was stage 2. Stage 3 is you have to network with everyone. And I didn't like networking. I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't wear a suit, and I felt it was all a bit corporate. But I spoke to everyone. We swapped business cards back in the day when people used to do that. So stage 3 is I talked to everyone. Stage 4 was I followed up. So I had 12 or 15 business cards. What do most people do with them? Put them in the bin or put them in their CRM and never contact them. I phoned every single one up and followed up. So that's step 4. Step 5 is my business partner of today and we had some rapport, we gelled. We were both a similar age. You know, I was just getting into property. He was a bit further ahead of me. You know, we both felt that there was more that our city could offer us. And I'd started reading some books, you know, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich, and he'd read lots too. So stage 5 was I found some common ground with a successful person. Stage 6 was he gave me a job. So he said, come to the office. And I was prepared to work for free because I thought, well, I need to know what this successful guy knows. So I went there and I maybe slightly stalked them out, but they gave me a job on minimum wage, but a really good commission. They hired me not on my skills because I had none. They hired me on my attitude. So I didn't say to them, hey, I'm nearly broke. You know, my life's awful. I said, I'm hungry, I'm motivated. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Give me the phones, I'll call people. You know, I'll work for a minimum amount of money. I'll work overtime. I love this, you know, and I showed passion and enthusiasm. So that maybe was stage 6. Stage 7 is I learned on the job. So I learned property investing, selling properties to people in a property, essentially like a realtor, but not quite. And instead of getting a technical qualification and spending years studying, I learned on the job. So I was getting paid to learn, which is amazing. So that was stage 7. Stage 8 was my business partner and I, i.e. someone who had money and experience, trusted me enough, and I proved to him that I was worthy investing in. So he put the money into our first deal, all of his money, and I got half of the equity, the uplift, the income. And then I think we did nearly 20 of those deals in our first year. Then stage whatever we are at, 8, 9, is before we were ready, but we were sort of ready, we started our own company. And that was, you know, one of the companies that I still have today. So they were like the 9 steps within that first year. I got my 50 grand debt paid off with the commissions. I probably earned quite a nice sum. And I had, you know, a dozen or so properties under my belt within that first year. So there's 9 tactical things I did in year 1.
Okay, so that's actually very good. I love the way you unpacked that. I think it was very, very insightful on many, many levels. I am curious though, what would your advice be to somebody who feels that they're not where they belong, in terms of their profession, their direction in life? They'd like to make a change, but they're not quite where you are. You know, some people might say, well, he was desperate. He had really nothing to lose. He had nothing going on anyway. So he put all of his eggs in a basket, that kind of thing. I actually am dealing with it to a degree with one of my clients currently. I won't get into too many specifics, but he is employed. He has a very nice position. He feels like he's hit a glass ceiling to a large degree and doesn't feel like he can continue to grow in the context where he is. And he feels stuck. And so on the one hand, he doesn't want to lose what he has. On the other hand, he feels like he needs to move in a different direction. In his case, he doesn't want to change industries. He just might want to consider more independence. But I'm curious to know what you would advise people who are in a position who, you know, may want a different industry, may want something different than what they currently have. They certainly are not happy where they are, but they're not necessarily so desperate. And maybe their adjustment needs to either be more incremental or just done differently than the way yours unfolded.
So I finish every single piece of content I do, which is thousands. I mean, I've done over 1,000 episodes just on my Disruptors podcast with, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. So step 1 in making the change, and you know, there are other contexts to change in addition to the one you presented. Step 1 is you have to take a risk and you have to get uncomfortable. And the reality, look at the facts. The facts are, if you haven't made the change, you are not uncomfortable enough yet, or you don't see that there is enough upside bearing in mind the risk yet. So step 1 is knowing if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. Step 2 is connecting to the pain to use it as a motivator. So today, they may not be much worse off if they stay. But what about 10 years? What about 15 years? What regrets might really start to unfold and bubble then? And, you know, with inflation, it's been very high the last few years. And, you know, the way that company structure work now is very different. You could get disrupted away by AI. So fast forward step 3 and think, okay, it might not be really bad now, but it could get a lot worse. Step 4, protect the downside. So people think it's a risk to change career, whether it's industry or just job or start a business. But when you think what's the worst that's going to happen, you probably won't die. You probably won't never be able to earn ever again. And in reality, you might try for 6 months, a year or 2. have to go back to your old job or another job, maybe one career drop, and 20% less money. And that's probably the worst that will happen. That's really not bad. Anyone can recover from that. But what's the best that might happen? You might have a job you love. You might have all this baggage you've carried for years finally free. You might, your ceiling of your career progression you're earning might just be smashed, and you might be able to double or quadruple where you want to go, or turn your passion into your profession. Now, final tip on this is, there's different ways to traverse into a new career. Number one is you can jump straight away and figure it out because you're like, oh, I've got to make it work. Humans are really resourceful, but we're most resourceful when we're under pressure. But we don't put ourselves under pressure because pressure feels horrible. But if you get good at putting yourself under pressure, all of a sudden you'll release all this latent resourcefulness that we all are born with. You know, if I was going to kidnap your children, you'd get bloody creative and resourceful on selling and persuasion and influence. You know, you'd do everything to talk me out of it. And that maybe there's skills you've got, but maybe you haven't been using them because you haven't had to. So you can either quit or change now, or you can set up a plan, which is evenings, weekends, you're going to learn or start something new. And then in 1 to 2 years, you're going to set the date, and then you're going to traverse your career, but having built knowledge or, you know, some form of income in the background. That's probably the steps to consider.
Super powerful. Yeah, I discuss that with my clients all the time. The issue of like, what's the worst that could happen? I use the analogy of a cliff, right? So you're sort of like at the cliff, and then you, for the most part, you get to walk yourself back off the cliff because you know that the worst case scenario is very, very unlikely, right? You talked about death and more extreme examples there, but the idea is, for the most part, if people are taking a risk, yeah, they're going to have this period of time where they have uncertainty. In fact, I had it myself. I share this with my audience frequently. My career is from the field of education. I had a very clearly defined job with contracts year after year as both a classroom teacher and then as an administrator and eventually as a headmaster. And then I decided, because of circumstances that came up, that it was time for me to bet on my own. Because I saw so many people become consultants and other things at a later point in their career, maybe 50s, 60s, when they're feeling like they're at the end of the line. They still want to generate revenue. They still want to make an impact, but they're not able to do it in the traditional way that they've done it. So they move into this phase. I wanted to do it at a much younger age. I felt like the opportunity was significant, and I kind of bet on myself to be able to do that. And thankfully, it's worked out really nicely for me. But I oftentimes find that people don't realize what the opportunities are in front of them until they step into that unknown, and they're willing to just go beyond their comfort zone. So sometimes it's the pressure, sometimes it's the desperation, but I think you painted a really important picture, because we don't want to live a life of regret. And so many people look back at their lives and they say, I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have lived my life to my own desires, my own specifications, not to make other people happy, all of that. And so you really opened up an important point there, Rob.
Thank you.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about these disruptors moving forward. I know you mentioned AI. What do people need to be thinking about as we move further into the future, both in terms of the kinds of skills they need to be developing? Of course, there are technical skills, but there may be other skills as well that you see to be really, really important. And simultaneously, and in that space, therefore, what do you feel would allow people, for now at least, based on what we know, to have a career and a life that is as, I don't want to say bulletproof, but is as proofable, for lack of a better term, to any outside disruptors that may potentially threaten them?
So there are evergreen skills, and there are transient or futuristic skills. The evergreen ones are sales and marketing. If you want to be bulletproof, get good at sales and marketing. Whether it is you getting good personally or you hiring people who are very good and having a good culture of sales and marketing. Marketing is generating the leads. Sales is converting the leads into clients. Marketing hopefully is inbound. Sales is often outbound. Now, if you're brilliant at brand, you don't need to do much marketing. If you're brilliant at marketing, you don't need to do much sales. So sales is the lowest power in the hierarchy. Apple don't have to do much selling to get you to buy a phone, every generation, which seems to happen more and more frequently. So sales, marketing, brand, these are always going to be brilliant skills for you to learn. Now, people who are employed or have a good career don't think they need to learn these. But if you want to get pay rises and you want to let your boss know that you should be getting promotions, or you want to come across well in interviews to get, a new role or career, you need to be good at sales and marketing. You're just selling and marketing yourself. So those are core evergreen skills. If you want to start a business, you can be good at logos and design and data and analytics, but you need clients. So sales and marketing gets you clients. When it comes to the futuristic or the transient, if you think 20 years ago, it was very valuable to learn how to touch type. Now moving into the future, you're going to need to know how to use your voice to search. So if everyone's still Googling instead of using Siri or AI for search, and if everyone is still doing their own research instead of using ChatGPT or whatever other AI software, then you're getting left behind. So not only using AI in your business or your career, but using AI personally for you to get good and quick. I don't know if anyone has children. Children can use an iPad from age 2. They get their finger out. By age 4, they can do all the movements on it. By age 7 and 8, they can use all social media really well. Now, people of, our generations who, maybe more into baby boomers or myself just before, we're not so good on the internet. We're not so good on social media. And the internet and social media, it's like the factory line that was revolutionized by Henry Ford, or it's like the gold rush or the oil rush. It's such a, social media is essentially free clients. You and I probably had to go to exhibitions and networking events. We had to talk to people and exchange business cards and follow. And all business was done calling people on the phone. Kids don't even pick up the phone now. They use voice memos, and they don't even use email. They use instant messaging. So, many modern leaders are of an older age and an older generation. You need to figure out what the kids are doing. A lot of the kids made a lot of money in crypto, because here's one thing. When I learned business, which was nearly 20 years ago, I learned from the billionaires who would say things like, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And the eighth wonder of the world is compounding. And now people are making millions in crypto in one bull run, which is what can be a few months. And now people who start in AI or start as a content creator can go viral within weeks in their first 5 videos. This was not possible when I started. And so learning social media, content, AI, you could even go as far as cryptocurrencies, the metaverse, and, the future of the internet, and where people are moving towards. A lot of people are moving away from Facebook, and now they're on Snapchat and TikTok. And these are some of the transient and time-tested skills that people should learn. Now, even if you do the transient ones like AI and social media, because there's going to be a new social media platform that launches every year, you're going to need to try these. If you're really good at influence, sales, marketing, persuasion, you're always going to be able to leverage these new platforms, because the fundamentals of influencing behavior are the same whether you write a letter with a quill with elegant language, or you're telepathizing your influence through brainwaves. It's still the same human motivations and messages.
Interesting. So I know you talked earlier about how to get on, how to deal with being uncomfortable and sort of leaning into that discomfort. But I want to circle back to it because you hit on something. It's kind of interesting, actually. In my mastermind group recently, in fact, I think it was our last conversation, a number of the members of the group, and these are small business owners who tend to be on, you didn't mention LinkedIn, if at all, briefly maybe, but that's where they tend to hang out. That's where most of their customers hang out. So that's their primary platform. And they just feel burnt out. They feel like, oh my goodness, it's such a grind to continually post there and to be so engaged there. And so that's one issue. But a lot of people feel like I'm not good at it. I'm not good at communicating in a new way that I wasn't used to when I was growing up, that whole kind of thing. And so I'm curious to know what advice you give to people who feel, in effect, they've got a fixed mindset. They've got a limited belief about what they can do, where they're comfortable, and they don't really want to lean into all of these new tools and opportunities. How do you get them to think differently so that ultimately they can take advantage of all that's in front of them?
Okay, so if someone feels that it's a grind or it's a bit of a burnout to maintain content on LinkedIn or other social media, imagine being in the First World War and having to compulsorily be enlisted to fight for your country against a nation you probably don't hate yourself, against people that are just people like you, and you are forced to do this and go and kill people you don't want to kill. And then go back on LinkedIn and see how you feel. So I feel so privileged to be able to do this with you and call this work. Even if I'd done 10 this morning, by the way, I've been in the studio for about 4 hours straight doing content. I am privileged because I'm not in a world war and I'm not forced to go and kill people I don't want to kill because I don't want to kill anybody. So burnout is when we perceive something is really hard and we don't want to do it, and that there's too much that we can handle. And the antidote to that is context. So I often have a little word with myself in my mind that things are hard and I'm getting frustrated and things are slow. And here's what I do. I spend an hour with my daughter. She's 9. She's a little diva. She's fiery. She's funny. And it doesn't matter what's going on. 1 hour with my daughter can get me back to a grounded state that I have a brilliant life. So tip number 1 is contextualize. We're bloody fortunate, all of us, to be here. I mean, we're speaking from 6,000 miles away.
Right.
Like, we're very fortunate. That's number 1. Number 2 is, do you want really good, well-qualified, ideal clients for free? If you do, LinkedIn's probably the best place for it. So you can spend 30, 40 hours a week doing everything else that doesn't really make money, or you can spend 10 hours a week on LinkedIn, posting regularly, engaging in the comments, doing some DMs, doing a few title job searches, knowing that for free, from thousands of miles away, you can acquire clients, don't have to pay anyone. I mean, we are very, very privileged. Now, back to my earlier question, or my answer is that sales and marketing makes you future-proof. If you took everything from me and it was illegal for me to be in my industry, I could take my sales and marketing and 17 years experience and go and set up in another industry.
Mm-hmm.
And if you made that illegal, I could go and set up in another one. And if you said, no, Rob, you can't do real estate in the UK anymore, you have to go and do it in America. I'll come to America, give me 6 to 12 months to learn the differences in the law, and I'm going to do real estate in America because I know sales and marketing. So if anyone's listening and they find social media and content hard and they're a bit stuck and they kind of want to grow, 1, be very grateful for where we are right now in the world, and 2, know that sales and marketing and social media is the quickest, easiest way to get the results that you've been dying for in your business.
Okay, so since you've mentioned sales and marketing quite a bit, and I agree with you, it's super important. What is one marketing, either you could provide us with a tip that would be very helpful that you found to really work with people, or something to avoid. And the same thing with sales, please. Something that when you're engaged in a sales conversation, you always want to do, and or something that you really want to avoid that people tend to do that you find to be counterproductive.
Okay, so I've been doing marketing for nearly 20 years, and we have the biggest training business in our sector in the UK, mostly because of our ability to market it well. And 8 years ago, how-to content, 5 ways to buy real estate with other people's money. That would have been a perfect title. Now that'll get virtually no engagement. Now what will get engagement is if you talk about Prince Harry's new book or something other that's topical and, in my humble opinion, a little bit more trashy. So how I've had to pivot is engaging in the initial headlines that are a little bit clickbaity and trashy, but then immediately switch the conversation into what I want to teach. That's how marketing has changed. So if you follow any of my content online, you'll see me with some relatively hypey, trashy, clickbaity headlines. For example, I did one this morning, which has done very well. How I bought my Aston Martin, no money down. Now, what I want to teach people to do is how to raise cash to start a business and buy real estate. Here's the really interesting thing. Yesterday, I put on my Ray-Ban Facebook Live glasses. I stood outside a 42 apartment building that I own, and I went live, and the title was, How I Bought This Property with Other People's Money, and it got very, very low views. Very low, like under 5,000, which for me is very low. The next day, I just changed property to Aston Martin and had the glasses on looking at an Aston Martin, a very sexy one. And all of a sudden, that's got, what, double or triple the views in a few hours. So I said the same thing in the video, but I just used the hook to catch people's attention. That is how marketing has dramatically changed. So the mistake is to educate people too quickly, or to go into how to, or just assume that your clients kind of will want to learn what you teach them. You've got to really earn their attention, which means you've got to be a bit more bold. In terms of selling, you know, we're finding in the UK the sales cycle is getting longer, and buyer safety is much more important nowadays. So the mistake you can make in selling right now is to go for the sale too soon. And therefore, what you should do is be a bit more patient and take the time to make the client feel safe. Lots of case studies, a very good risk reversal, you know, a very good guarantee. Make sure that on all social media, all your profiles are up to date, so it doesn't just look like you've got one Facebook page and nothing else. And work on the trust element a lot more. And a great way to do that is to ask your clients what's most important to them in their life, and ask your clients what's most important to them when engaging in services like yours. And instead of selling what you've got, listen to what they tell you is most important to them and repackage what you've got based on what they tell you they most value.
That part is brilliant, by the way. I love all of it, but that last point I think is particularly salient.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
thank you. Yeah, go ahead. What were we going to say?
Yeah, I was just really going to jump on what you said and say that people don't really like being sold to, but they love to buy.
Yeah.
And so when someone feels like what you're selling them is what they want to buy, there's much less friction. Because, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, here's how to handle an objection and here's how to overcome an objection. But if we start objecting with each other, that becomes a debate and that becomes an argument, and the rapport is gone. And I'm going to be stubborn because I want to make my point. And you're going to be stubborn because you want to make your point. And we've forgotten why we're here in the first place. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, you're supposed to be helping me. So you want to inoculate objections, which means you deal with them before they come up. And the best way to do that is to know what's most important to them. And just, you know, what you want to do is have your core offer. But how you present it changes based on the highest values of the individual that you're talking to.
Wow. Yeah, I really wish I could unpack this even further. I would tell you this would be, I can't wait to share it actually with my mastermind group as well, because I think all these points are things that we talk about frequently. But I am going to ask you as we end this segment, a question I ask all of my guests, which I think is really important. And that is, what, reflecting back, Rob, on all the things that have made you who you are today, I'm sure that there were some mistakes along the way that propelled you for greater success. So if you could distill one that at the time seemed like a massive error on your part that really positioned you for so much more in the future, what would that be?
This is really easy. And this never goes away, but you can transcend it or move through levels of mastery. And that is being too concerned and scared of what other people think about me. So for my entire life, I've been a people pleaser and a conflict avoider because my dad was a strong Northern English male, and he could get very angry very quickly, and he would lash out. He wouldn't like beat me, not in an abusive way, but like anger management issues. So my whole family, me, my sister, my mum, would placate him and try and calm him down and avoid, conflict in restaurants when he was shouting at waiters, and conflict in the pubs he owns when he was having arguments with his customers. And we all developed this real conflict avoidance behavioral mechanism, which was a self-protection. And it took a lot of therapy and personal development and investment in myself to unpack this. And I realized that's a pattern I've played ever since. I'm 45 now. And this came from probably, when I was a young boy. Now, it was so strong in me when I started, even to the point where if someone said anything negative on a Facebook post, I'd delete the post. I wouldn't say it again. I'd be worried about doing a video in case someone was going to criticize me. And year by year and layer by layer, I accept the critics and the trolls and the haters. And, I'm more bold and more courageous and more myself. And surely it's better to be hated for who you are than hated for who you're not. And the only way you can avoid criticism, and I think this might have been Mark Twain, who said it, say nothing, be nothing, do nothing, which is not going to make us any money in business.
Right.
So throughout the last 17 years, I've been moving through levels of mastery and resilience in accepting being criticized and having the courage to be disliked, even to the point now where I have this little measure. If my wife, my business partner, and my MD don't like my marketing campaign, it's probably a good one. And they're the three people closest to me. Yeah. Because, they're safe and they're analytical and they think practically and operationally and to reduce risk. But that's not how you do a great marketing campaign. So I've even got to piss off my loved ones and my partners to know that, I've done a good marketing campaign.
I've done quite a bit of that. My family hates social media. So the very fact that I'm on there is an issue. And I just had this whole blow up with my wife recently on that point, because of the fact that I'm putting myself out there. And I told her, I said, I've gotten all these speaking gigs and things like that. And I asked people, how did you find me? They found me on LinkedIn. They found an article of mine over here, a video I posted over there. So you have to, and I, by the way, 12 years ago, when I was wrapping up my tenure as headmaster, I maybe had just gotten on LinkedIn as the first platform. Partially, it was a social and cultural and religious piece, because at the time, social media was not viewed positively within the Orthodox Jewish community in which I operate, and still many people do not engage with it. But I took that path, and I took that leap, I guess you would say, and got the criticism and all of that, because I knew that the only way for me to put myself out there and be willing to demonstrate my capacity is by posting this content. People aren't going to find me if I'm hiding under a rock. So that was a great point. Thank you for ending the segment with such an insight. Let's now shift to the rapid fire. We keep them short and sweet. 2 AI tools that every entrepreneur must be using?
Chat GPT and DALI,
Educate me on the latter. What does it do?
image-based AI,
Okay, got to check it
being able
out.
to create and edit virtually any image.
A famous person, alive or dead, that you would love to meet and do lunch with.
Donald Trump.
Hey, I love that one. A message you would love to plaster on billboards all throughout the UK.
If you don't risk anything, you risk everything.
Nice. Your favorite football team. We'll define it the British way.
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Okay. And the best time to hang out in England.
I'll tell you
Maybe
what I'm
there's-
really thinking. I'm really
Okay.
thinking the tax has got so high, you're probably best not hanging out in England.
I see. Okay. Well, if you do choose to come to the US and do your real estate here, you'll let me know. All right. And the last one, I ask all of my guests, a productivity tip that helps you to get more done.
15 to 20,000 steps a day while doing all of my WhatsApp voice memos, and therefore hopefully extending my life by maybe a decade, because I'm told that regular walking is one of the best ways to do that, and the energy it gives you, and ideally early. And you connect with nature. When you see the sunrise, it's unbelievable.
It really
And back
is.
to your question about the best time to come to the UK, when I'm in London and we can meet up.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's do it. All right. So why don't you let everybody know, please, where they can find you online, learn more about your work, engage in your programs or your offerings. Where would that be?
Well, look, my name is Rob Moore. ROBMOORE. So you'll find loads of my books on Amazon. You'll find me on every social media platform. My show is called Disruptors. That's over 1,000 episodes now, my podcast show, where I interview mover shakers, game changers, and change makers. But if you want kind of like a central resource where you can access thousands maybe of hours of my content and resources over the years, rob.team. So rob.team is my digital financial freedom platform to help people start and scale their business, make, manage, and multiply more money and build multiple streams of recurring income. You just type in rob.team. I've also got a 12-week money mastermind university I'm actually giving away as a gift to join there. I believe the school system in the UK is outdated when it comes to money. So as the author of one of the best-selling books in the world on money, which is called Money, I rewrote what I believe the financial system should teach and how it should teach it, and created my own university course, which is in rob.team.
Love it. Okay. Well, I hope people will go out and get those resources and get to know you better. You've shared so much wisdom, so much inspiration. I'm going to ask you, though, for one final life lesson to put really a beautiful ending or cap on the conversation that we've had today.
I would say that life is beautiful. There was even the film Life is Beautiful, about someone in a concentration camp who, till his very end, he was protecting a young girl who was in there too. And everything became a game to him to keep her happy in the most horrific of conditions. And even Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, you know, he talked about how you can see things in a positive way, even if things aren't going your way, with obviously very credible, painful things that happen to them that are inhumane. So I would say to everyone, life is beautiful, and no matter how hard it is, and no matter how much you're not where you want to be, you are very lucky to be alive, and your life is amazing, and we're lucky to be here together. And putting yourself in that mindset, I believe, really changes. It changes how you think, of course, but I actually think it changes what you attract into your life. Because I think, you know, gratitude is a very attractive quality, and, you know, resentment and bitterness is a very repellent quality. So life is beautiful. That's what we'll end on.
I love it. Really very powerful. Thank you so much, Rob, for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your forecast for the future, all of the above and more. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to sharing this content with my audience, and hopefully we'll stay in touch.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate
Be
it.
well. Bye-bye now.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode and for investing in yourself so that you can lead to succeed. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Your feedback gives the show more social proof and encourages more folks to listen.